Kelly Bullis, CPA here in Carson City. I'm with Toby Tatum once again, continuing our talk about what do you do to make your business more sellable someday. And Toby, we've been talking about growing your market share and cross-training employees, not being dependent upon one or two key customers or one or two key employees or one or two key providers. But there's something else that you started to talk about last week, and I'd like to get into that more. You started to mention something you call the paradox of success.
Right.
What is the paradox of success?
The paradox of success is the situation where the business owner does all those things to build sales revenue, to get new customers, to build sales revenue, however they do it and whatever their format for doing that, by adding new product lines, by enlarging their store, by adding new sales territory, or in the restaurant business of building a second unit or a third unit. And they're very successful initially, and the sales revenue takes off, and they are enormously successful at building that sales revenue, but fails totally to build a support structure, an organizational support structure, to handle the more complex organization that they have developed. And as a result, that sales revenue becomes a weight on top of this weak organizational infrastructure, organizational system, and the whole thing collapses, and the next thing you know, they're out of business, and they're out of business because they were so successful building sales revenue initially.
So in other words, there's more to growing a business than just obviously getting more sales. I think everybody understands that, but it's kind of like darned if you do and darned if you don't.
Yeah.
If I spend a lot of money on hiring a lot of people and setting up a management structure before I grow my business, and it doesn't grow like I thought, I sink from all of the overhead I've created. So there's kind of this dance that you go through of, as you grow your sales, you need to grow your management structure in your business to support that.
That's exactly
not
right.
grow like crazy and not keep up with it.
That's exactly right.
So I'm a buyer and I want to buy a business someday, and I come across a business where it's had this problem.
Right.
It's grown, but it doesn't have the support system in place, so if the owner who did all the work steps out of the picture, will that business thrive? I want to buy a business that will thrive whether you're there or not.
Right.
And so that's a problem.
That is the problem.
So I need to train up some management now. I've made that mistake. I've grown my business. It's all about me. It's my alter ego. I'm very successful, but if I sold this business to somebody and I'm no longer there, the business won't run very well. How do I create a middle management structure that will run that business and I can step away and it will keep running as successful or better than if I'm doing all the work?
Okay. Well, first of all, one of the things that you said is that a buyer comes in and sees a situation. The thing of it, the most likely scenario is the buyer won't buy the business. What you have is a business that is outgrown what we call the spiderweb organizational structure, where the manager, the owner-manager that formed it, is the center of everything. He's the chief executive officer, the chief financial officer, the chief operational officer, the chief of human resources, and so forth. That's the spiderweb organizational structure. And if a business gets a certain size where that no longer works, and you have to think your mindset has to go to more of a more corporate level, pyramid type of middle management organization and stuff like that. And you have to have, in that, you have to have improved training systems, management development systems, management compensation systems, improved employee incentive systems, improved financial reporting and analysis procedures, policies and procedures. All of these things have to start happening at the same time that you're building sales, or you're going to have the paradox of success, and it's going to collapse.
Okay, so what you're saying is if I've made the mistake of creating this spider web management structure,
yeah,
and I want to fix it,
yeah,
and so I could bring in some employees from the outside and hire them as experts that already know how to manage,
yeah,
but maybe they don't understand my business, or they don't get along with my employees, or they don't make the customers very happy, and so I've hired somebody that maybe doesn't fit. So I think, well, maybe I'll just I'll take an employee from the inside and make them a manager. And maybe they're not management material. They were a really good worker, but they're not a good manager of people, and they run off all my good employees, and they make my customers unhappy, and the business still doesn't do well. sell. I'm kind of trapped no matter what I do. What's the alternative?
Well, first of all, let me say this, that what you just explained, the circumstances of going out and hiring a manager that's not going to work, and just taking your best hourly employee and just calling them to say, wave a wand and you're now a manager, that's not going to work. And I can talk from experience because my business, when I grew my business to its largest size, I had 275 employees, and I had 23 salary managers. And if you think you can just put an ad in the paper and ask for a manager, and in comes a manager that fits that job perfectly, you are in for a big surprise, because it never happens that way. And likewise, if you think you can take your best hourly employee, just wave a wand and make them a manager, and then they are a manager, you're in for another big surprise. Neither of those things work.
So the alternative is that there needs to be a structure in place before you make a manager that has defined responsibilities, defined measurements to know whether they're doing a good job or not, and a coaching process where over time they grow into that position.
That's right.
And what I have found is there's a lot of books out there and a lot of experts and business coaches, and I'm a business coach and Toby is one, so we can help with that too. But I will tell you, maybe one of the first places to start if you've never done this is an old book that's been around since the 90s.
Yeah.
It's called The E-Myth Revisited. I got a copy of it here. The E-Myth Revisited. The author is Michael Gerber. And this is a very simple book that takes you step by step through the process of creating some simple systems that have some structure and some accountability. And basically in the book he tells the story that he got this idea from going to a McDonald's in the morning, and he was waiting to meet with somebody, and so he ordered some coffee and an apple pie. And then later in the day he went to a different McDonald's, and he was waiting for somebody to come, and he ordered some coffee and an apple pie, and he noticed the service was the same. The restaurant quality was the same. The way the employees treated him was the same. The food was the same. And so he started to decide he needed to become a student of McDonald's. Why were they able to do that with entry-level, minimum wage employees? And it's because the Koch brothers, when they created McDonald's, they didn't create a Big Mac that everybody wanted. They created a system that you can hire employees and put them into that system, and they would perform the same way that you wanted them to. And so he wrote this book around how to do that in any business structure. So if you want to read this book, The E-Myth Revisited, that's a starting point. After you've got this book and read it, you can get it on Amazon.com, I'm sure. Give us a call.
Yeah.
We'll be glad to come and help you begin to put some of this together and put some flesh on it. Because before you are able to sell your business, it's got to have the ability to run all by itself, whether you're there or not. And the average small business uses a spider web management structure, and that's not a viable way of running a business to a buyer. They won't like that.
Let me just say that I wish that I had had that book in my early years as a business owner. Because when I went from one restaurant, I eventually owned 6 restaurants, but when I went from one restaurant to 2, that was the most difficult and frustrating and stressful point in my entire life, was transitioning from one restaurant to 2, because I transitioned from managing hourly employees to managing managers. And all the things that I just said that you need to do, I had to learn the hard way. And that meant a lot of hours, a lot of lost weekends, a lot of no vacations, a lot of lost money, a lot of frustration, and at some point close to the paradox of success, close to actually losing what I had created so far. I wish I had that book, and I wish I had somebody with my experience that I have now to help me work through that stage of the development of my company.
Well, we're available to help you. If you want to give us a call, 882-4459, area code 775. Give us a call. We'll be glad to help you out. We'll be again next week to talk a little more about what do you do when you are the owner and you want to sell, and we have this paradox of success we're starting to resolve, but we still have some other challenges. So we're going to go into that next week some more. Thanks for listening.